Well, good evening, ladies and gentlemen. It's 11:52 p.m., Thursday, the 23rd of May. And today I'm just going to do a pure walkabout show, and I'm going to talk about the experience of just becoming a YouTuber and interacting with people. You know, spoiler alert, it's phenomenal. It's so wonderful for me to read the comments, and some of you are using the email down there to call me or send me emails, longer in nature. Really appreciate it immensely. I love the feedback. Um, it makes me feel good, you know. It makes me feel good to be useful. This is what we all want. We want to be useful. We want to feel needed. This is, I think, the principle of being, you know. What was that book by Sartre, Being and Nothingness? But being, true being, I think, is achieved by being useful and being generous and being open, being honest, and trying to be the best person you can be and communicate what you think is going on. And if the comments and the emails and the text messages through various social media are any indication, we're on the same page, those of you who are watching me. An infinitesimally small number of people now, but a powerful collective nonetheless. So there's just a couple things I want to address tonight. Well, I mean, I don't really have an agenda. Some of you have reported phenomenal experiences in terms of incalculable coincidences, or what we might call synchronicities, listening to the podcast. And that's a really good affirmation for me. It means that what I'm saying is being supported or backed up spiritually by whatever you're working with, or however we're communicating through this time and space with the dislocated voice technology. You know, we all come from different places, and we're all trying to get back to the same place. Some people don't have the luxury of consciously addressing the concept of the soul. They don't have the time or the space to do spiritual practices. Some lives are such that people are born and they will live a very short period of time, and that entire lifetime will be suffering and conflict. They don't have a chance to pick up the Bhagavad Gita. They don't have a chance to study Norse ruins. They don't have a chance to learn to meditate. And this is one of the perennial questions people ask. Why, 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 why? I can only give my opinion on that. And my opinion is that we're all at different spiritual levels, and that we incarnate and we have to pay for what we did. Sometimes people can be born and have nothing but a good luck life. Everything seems to go their way, or at least to us viewing their lives, it seems to go their way. You know, some of these Hollywood stars who are just, born uniquely attractive and magnetic, even if they lack the natural charisma of voice or personality or talent, they have these remarkably easy lives in terms of getting by, buying houses, finding love, all of these sorts of things, right? And we say to ourselves, why? But if you study your life closely, you're getting exactly what you need, because this is a flawless system. I don't dispute and I don't retract anything I said in The Devil in Us, a memoir of you and me. I think that the system that we're existing in, the multidimensional system that we're living in, the multidimensional hologram, has been tweaked, hacked, leveraged, compromised in some ways. But it doesn't mean that the underlying fundamental spiritual architecture is entirely gone. Nobody can undo that because that was done by the Creator. Nobody can undo it at all. So the life you have is the life you deserve. And there's a tremendous healing in that. It took me years to find the healing power in that realization, to accept my upbringing, which was extremely traumatic. The most traumatic upbringing you can have is a deliberate deprivation of love, or parents literally incapable of loving. If you're born in a war-torn situation and your family is torn apart when you're 10 or 12 years old, if you were genuinely loved for those first 12 years, that's actually less traumatic than being born in a love deprivation and having a love deprivation thrust upon you at the familial level your whole life. Some people are born with spiritual deficits and material benefits. Some people are born very smart, some people are born very dim. Some people are born tall, some people are born short. Some people are born to find happiness and contentment in their lives very easily, and some people are born to live in a very depressive state. I learned a long time ago not to question these things. It's one of the early lessons. Accept your life whatever you find it to be. The greatest treasure in life is autonomy. I consider myself richer and better off, sincerely. I'm not just saying that as a positive self-affirmation, nonsensical statement. I mean it sincerely. I consider myself richer, wealthier, better off in every way than a Brad Pitt or an Elon Musk or anything like that. And it's because I've been able to create a life where I get to do what I want to do. That the mandate of economy, although still upon me, I do have bills, they're not nearly as crushing as the bills and the work demands to stay alive in the first world is now. The rents in major North American cities, the food prices, the gasoline prices, the insurance, everything. It's extremely difficult. My life is markedly easier compared to that. I get to write books that are very meaningful for me. Let me tell you what writing any one of these books is like. So those of you who've listened to me know that I'm an advocate of meditation. I think it's a phenomenal human practice, even if you commence from a secular perspective. Even if you commence just with trying to understand consciousness psychologically and have a better understanding of your interior, and you think all the mystical stuff is nonsense, it's still beneficial. You know, it's beneficial whatever you use it for. You know, I used to watch this TV show called Billions. Some of you may have seen it. It was about a hedge fund manager and his team in New York. They had a meditation room because they had figured out that meditation aids concentration and productivity. And they're all about making money, and that requires concentration and productivity. So they advocated meditation. Maybe not the best use of meditation, but they saw the universal application of the practice. What I realized is that oration, speaking, the power of voice as a spiritual tool, in practice, I never had value for it. I pretty much gave it up when I gave up my Catholic roots at the age of 17. You know, after being baptized and confirmed, going through all the sacraments of the Catholic religion, I left the religion at 17, never went back. And with it, I left prayer behind. But I realized, and a lot of you helped me realize this through your comments and your emails to me, that the books are a form of prayer. And that when you write something down or you declare something definitively, it's very powerful. There are a lot of spiritual teachings around this. The gentleman I authored a book for, Andrew Bartzis, and a lot of other, without being derogatory, I can't think of any other term, New Age teachers, they use revocations. They call them soul contract revocations. You write down a bunch of things and you say it aloud. Could be just a page, half a page, and you say it aloud. And it's a revocation. It's an invocation of your voice to revoke something in the fabric of time and space, something that had been operating as an assumed contract, whether you had full conscious of it or not. And it occurred to me that these books are like a revocation as a firecracker, and in that same model of language for spiritual development and self-possession, self-realization, and self-ownership, these books, like The Devil in Us, are a nuclear bomb. So I've been erroneous in saying that I don't pray. I do pray. I do pray. I just do it through these books. Even in my literary fiction, they were forms of prayer. Because a book is written with your full heart. You put everything into it. And there's a tremendous power in getting it down on paper. Mark bears testament to that, the young man that I sometimes talk to from just outside of Philadelphia, I believe. Pennsylvania, nonetheless. I could have Philadelphia mixed up with Pittsburgh, but I think it's Philadelphia. You know, the book has an energy when he gets it. And I've heard this from other people. More than a half dozen have profound experiences receiving the book and reading the book. It's a transmission of energy. It's a form of prayer. People say, you know, you see in social media now when somebody is not well, or somebody speaks on the behalf of someone who's not well, their husband or their wife, they ask for prayers. It's like an energy bank, right? You're sharing energy. It's like an energy bank. As are these books. They're energy banks. I wanted to talk also a little bit about my cosmology tonight, and this This part of the podcast was stimulated by a friend of mine who wrote me an email and flat out disagreed with me that vegetarianism is a necessity for people on spiritual path. This person is a very accomplished co-worker with a group of gods. He's a co-worker with a group of gods. He works with them in body, they're in their realm. He communicates with them, and they are able to assist with things like healing and things like this, depossessions, all kinds of things. Very fascinating person, one of the most fascinating people I've met in the last few years. So here's what I've learned over the years. All of the gods are real. They're all real. And I don't mean that they're one giant mythical archetype under different names and different cultures. I mean each set of gods is real. Zeus and the Greek pantheon are real. Odin and the Norse pantheon are real. The Tuatha De Danann of my Celtic people are real. The gods of the Abrahamic scripture are real. So the question then becomes, what's a god? The Hindu gods. Now, the theory in Hinduism, as explained in a podcast I watched last year, is that the gods are intermediaries between man and the divine because the divine is incomprehensible to man. And the aspects of the divinity come through the god, that the god forms a kind of gateway between mankind and the Creator. And I suppose that's true if you believe it's true. But it is very possible for a human being to have a relationship with the Creator. And when you realize that, you don't have too much more to do with the gods. This does not give you license to disrespect the gods. They all have to be respected. If you find yourself in their jurisdiction, you better respect them. You wouldn't go to a neighborhood in Chicago and disrespect the traditions, customs, and formalities of that neighborhood. You might get shot. There are formalities and rituals associated with living in the criminal underworld. If you violate those rules, you're punished. You can't really disrespect the police. You can't really disrespect your firemen. You can't really disrespect your politicians either, even though we all do it now. Let me just go back and look at what I said about Trudeau. But I don't think people would hold to gods very often if the gods were trying to destroy them. And that's what these politicians are doing now. So the respect contract is void in that regard. So we can all let ourselves off the hook for that one. But in a normal functioning society, you shouldn't disrespect your politicians. So the question becomes then, what is the Creator and how can you understand the Creator? If most societies use gods or a priestcraft as intermediaries between human beings and the divine, how does an individual have a relationship with the Creator? And the Creator is not anthropomorphized in any way. To anthropomorphize is to attribute human qualities to something. The gods are not only, they don't need to be anthropomorphized because they are like us. You know, they will look like us. Maybe bigger, maybe more brilliant, certainly more powerful, capable of astounding feats that human beings can't do, but they're individuated beings. The Creator is everything, everything at the same time. Every molecule in creation is a part, an aspect of the Creator. The darkness, as Bob and I have gone out of our way to explain to people in these books, The Light of Darkness and The Devil in Us, is in fact an aspect of the Creator as well. Everything in creation is an aspect of the Creator. So the question becomes, how do you have a relationship with something that you cannot anthropomorphize? Well, the answer is it develops over time. You will never see the Creator. Never see the Creator. You'll never lay eyes on the Creator. You know the Creator by trying to become the Creator. By accessing and expressing that part of you is that which is the same as the Creator. You know, as I moved through some of these circles in the last few years I've moved through, and done podcasts with various people promoting the books and stuff, I noticed the habit people have of using the word source to represent the Creator. And I always found it a little bit offensive, although I bit my tongue, because I like to let people do what they want because I want to do what I want. So if I want to do what I want, I can only have that if I maintain the reciprocal law of letting other people do what they want. Why would the title, the term, or the appellation source bother me? Because it's agnostic to feeling. There's no affection. There's no love. I prefer the word God, even though it's got to be the most sullied word in the English language. No real noun definition to it, unless you're describing a God. Then you can get quite precise in the attributes that would make it a proper noun, whether it be Zeus, Odin, or some other god. I like the word God because it comes with a tremendous charge of affection. I guess it's the short form for good. And the devil is the long form of evil. But ultimately, it's the Creator we're thinking of. Now, most of the gods are on the astral plane, which is not a tremendously high state of consciousness. Some of them are higher. Some of them are very close or almost at the feet of the Creator, the feet being a metaphor for the dimension the Creator lives in. And I don't even think dimension is the right word, because the Creator is all dimensions at once. But the Creator begins to manifest as an experience the closer you get to a non-dual way of thinking. the closer you get to transcending right, wrong, good and evil and all these things. And that may sound horrible to some people. Some people are very wed to the idea of good and evil. And certainly the way I speak sometimes, you would not be incorrect in seeing a recognition of good and evil, right and wrong. Certainly it's human. I think what's going on in the Ukraine is very wrong. Absolutely wrong. I think what's being done to the Ukrainian people is horrible. There was no chance of winning that war with just Ukrainian soldiers and second-rate 10-year-old equipment sent over from the United States. And yet we've been doing it for a few years now. And just about all the family-age men in that country are dead. There's no next generation. Now, somebody wanted that. This may sound paranoid to some of you. It may sound conspiratorial to some of you. But in my experience, whatever the result is in something, that was the goal to begin with. So the public is left with the impression that a dilapidated Ukrainian population, a beautiful ethnicity with its own language, its own culture, its own religious expression, its own gods, if you will, its own myths, has been completely wiped out. And the public would be left with the impression that this was the effect of the war, but it was not the intended outcome. I'm telling you, it was the intended outcome. 99 times out of 100 on this planet, the result, even if they tell you it was accidental, was the intent. I make this statement with a relatively good understanding of the causal fabric of this reality, the cause and effect of it all. So to my friend who took offense to my saying that it's wrong to eat meat, let me lawyer my answer a little bit. It depends what your goals are. If you want a fuller relationship with the Creator, it would be better to give up meat. If your gods want you to fight for them while you're physically incarnate, and many of the gods want their devotees to fight for them, then you would need the rations of a soldier, and meat would be appropriate for you to eat. Our existence in time and space is determined by our intent, what we want to do. If you want to make the world a better place, if you are possessed by that vanity, then you will keep coming here again and again and again and again. And why? Well, study your behavior. You're asking for it. That's where you have found your meaning. That's where you have found your purpose. And so we live in a reality where the Creator, not the gods, the Creator likes to give every soul, every individuated perception, what it wants. This is a be careful what you wish for hologram. Do you understand? So meditation is the dissolution of contracts with this world while still being of service, helping people understand some things clearly. I have an investment in this world as well, or I wouldn't write books. But I don't think I want to come back here anymore. I'm hoping this is my last life. It's for the Creator to determine, at the adjudication of his appointed officials, the lords of karma, the accountants of causality, the metrics of intent, imagining, and fantasy. What is this guy saying? What is his conscious and unconscious mind saying? What does he really want? All that goes into the hopper. You get your ticket. You can go here. You don't have to come back to Earth anymore, or you're going back to Earth. More specifically, on the topic of meat, this particular friend said that everything screams when it dies, even plants, and it's been proven. And he's right. It has been proven. I've known about this for decades. There was an experiment done, I think I was in my 20s when I read it. They boiled water beside a potted plant, and they had an ultraviolet camera on the plant. And they put a lobster into the boiling water. And the plant empathetically responded to the suffering of the lobster. Yes, plants don't want to die either. But the principle of vegetarianism, as it applies to karmic accounts and spiritual life, is that you want to minimize your karma with diet. So the rule is that it follows the number of elements in the organism. Plants only have 2 elements. Fish have 3. Mammals have 4. Human beings have 5, the 5th being ether. We're the only mammal on the planet that has that 5th element. Therefore, the greatest sin, the greatest offense against the Creator, through diet, would be cannibalism. Which is why the Satanists do it. Because that's their thing, is offending the Creator. But they'll grow out of it. The Creator forgives everything. The Creator is incapable of even holding a grudge. There's not really what we'd call a personality there. It's more like an invisible ocean of consciousness enveloping everything. The physical, the astral, the causal, the mental. And then it generates itself more fully in its full expression is in the spiritual regions. And it projects itself down into this multidimensional hologram we live in. Now, not a lot of people know this, but even the gods at some point will be required to incarnate in a human body. You don't become a god and from there merge with the Creator. You have to come back down into a physical body to merge with the Creator. Gods can live a long time. Some of them can live millions of years, but they're not eternal. So when I focus my worship, I want it to be on the eternal. I don't want it to be an elasticized longevity. I want it to be the true eternal. Now, the eternal region is the eternal region because it's the only place you can live eternally. And you can live eternally there because all the aspects that would create karma are stripped from you. So that's why it's probably not good if you want a relationship with the Creator to eat meat, to eat flesh, and especially blood. And especially red blood. The source of all the blood rituals. Now, it's possible to worship the Creator and still interact with gods. I have. Gods are transactional. They're not unconditional. The Creator is unconditional. If you can access the Creator, that love is unconditional. But getting to the point where you can feel that love is conditional. You have to change yourself. Reaching these gods on the astral or causal plane is relatively facile. You can learn to do it in a very short period of time. Absolutely a very short period of time. So some of you might be getting a little confused listening to me. So you're now listening to a gentleman who believes the figure we know as Satan is real, that the angels are real, that the demons are real, that the extraterrestrials are real, and now you can throw the gods into the hopper as well. They're also real. We live in a universe and a reality, a multidimensional reality, more diverse than New York in the 90s. Toronto in the 2000s, where more languages are spoken in the city of Toronto than any other city in the world, the city I spent most of my life in Canada. All of these conditions are true, and they should all tell you something about the Creator. Now, further to the topic of meat, it's not just the act of eating meat in 2024. If you live on a farm and you raise animals and you raise them compassionately, you take care of them, you take care of their young, you pay for their medical bills, and you grow fond of the animals and you love them, that is the ideal condition to eat meat. Which, truth be told, I do maybe 5 or 6 times a year, and usually red meat for the B12, which is very difficult to get anywhere else, and you can have serious health problems if you have a B12 deficiency, because it can't be built up again once it's gone from the body. I found it very difficult to kill my pigs because I fell in love with them. You know, you get them when they're piglets, or you have a mother and she has a litter, they're cute as can be, and you raise them, you let them run out of the pen a little bit, you watch them interact with each other. My wife said, don't name them. She was right. She's right about everything up here. She's born and raised here, right? I'm just an immigrant. I found it tremendously difficult to kill the pigs. And I made a point of getting really good at it, so the suffering was at a minimum. If I was killing a pig with a partner, you need 2 people if you're not using a gun. There's a sledgehammer and then there's a knife. I was the knife man. Collarbone straight down into the heart. You can't miss though. And it's got to be quick. Got to be quick. And the suffering's over in 3 seconds. It's the closest you can come to euthanasia. You clean the animal and you butcher it, and the whole time you're doing it, you're thinking, this dude was just alive, man. You know? But when I say that you shouldn't eat meat now, which you're free to do, like I said, you do what you want to do, because that gives me the liberty to do what I want to do. But if you're getting your meat from the corporate farming system, you need to watch a few videos of how those animals are raised. They're literally tortured. It's a satanic ritual at this point. Watch how a cow is raised in an industrial corporate milking operation or a meat operation. I always say to people, where I live, the egg yolks are tangerine orange. And that's because they're full eggs produced over 24 hours. That's the normal cycle of time it takes a chicken to produce an egg by nature's laws, 24 hours. But man, in his infinite lust for more money, more profitability, greater shares for the shareholders, or greater dividends for the shareholders, is always looking for ways to speed up the process to make it more profitable. And when you get into the food business, that entails tremendous suffering for the animal. The chickens literally go insane. They live in little cages all day, the egg chickens. They live in little tiny cages all day. They can't move around. They have literally no exercise. They're under fluorescent light 24 hours a day. Now, if you have ever lived in nature, lived on a farm, chickens are like clocks. They wake up with the sun. They go back to their coop at sunset. You don't have to shepherd chickens. If they were born and raised in a chicken coop, they will go back to the chicken coop 100% of the time. Okay? That's just what they do. Go back to the chicken coop. So they start the day and they finish the day. And if you let them run around free range, you don't have to feed them that much. You don't have to buy much corn or much feed, because they'll just go all over your property and eat every insect they find. And unlike humans and Klaus Schwab's desire that we start eating insects, they're actually very good for the chicken, has all the nutrition they need, and it's a free source of food. So free-range chickens are phenomenal. The roosters will make their sound at almost exactly 3:15 every day. It's uncanny. There's something about the magnetism in the planet. Somebody listening to me probably knows all the details of this. 3:15 is a very interesting time. 3:15 in the morning. It is, if you go back to that movie and book, the Amityville Horror from the 70s, all of the really crazy paranormal stuff started at 3:15, and they were always woken up at 3:15 in the morning. Now, the writer of the books suggested that this was because the activity was satanic, and that it was the opposite of 3:15 in the afternoon, which is the alleged time Christ died. I don't believe Christ even died, so that's a moot point. And I certainly don't believe that's the reason they had all the paranormal activity in the house. It's because there's something about the magnetism of the planet, and the electromagnetic structures are the boundaries of realms. So 3:15, if you're going to have like a ghost experience, it'll very often happen at 3:15 in the morning. Very interesting thing as well, it is the best time for a serious meditator to get an hour of meditation in. 3:15 to 4:15 in the morning. Very interesting. So the chickens are driven insane. They're put under the fluorescent light to get 2 eggs in a 24-hour period. So they, through fluorescent light, they hack the circadian rhythm of the chicken. I'm not saying a chicken has a great mission in life, but it should be allowed to be a chicken. I mean, if we're going to allow things to be produced in that manner, raised and forced to live in that manner, to serve the conveniences of our modern living, our condominium living, I don't think that's too good. Cows, pigs, look into it. Now, I'm not a fanatic about diet. I just confess to you that I do eat red meat about 6 times a year for the B12. I eat eggs every day. But I really don't like to eat a lot of meat, and I've given you my reasons very clearly. And I felt that this was needed. Because the email I received was very forceful and demonstrative. So I feel the necessity to respond. Openly, honestly, compassionately, and directly. This is why I don't think meat eating is good. Again, if you live on a farm and you're raising your own animals and you love them and you give them a natural life until they're harvested, it's a completely different story. But who does that now? Who does that? The abuse we heap upon nature is mind-boggling. Mind-boggling. The vanity of our ambitions as human beings is mind-boggling. Man at the top of creation. Sure, it's true when you get into the spiritual teachings that as you come up through the incarnational system, you are everything on the planet. This is the life of what we call a soul. Comes up through everything on the planet and finally gets the human life, and then from the human life you cycle out of this world. You become something else. The need for matter no longer is required. You have finished all of the assimilation of knowledge and information down here. Experientially. It's not good enough to learn it mentally. That's not spiritual learning. Spiritual learning is always experiential. Magical learning is always knowledge-based. It's very much like science. Very, very similar to science. Okay? Formula, ritual, really the same thing when you study them. So a lot of these documentaries on corporate food farming are done by vegan fanatics. I'm not a vegan fanatic. If I go to someone's house and they were not forewarned that I'm a vegetarian and they're serving meat, I eat the meat. I'm not fanatical about these things. But at the same time, I am never going to allow myself to believe that I have the right to eat meat every day and animals are here to serve me because I'm a man. That's not the way I've evolved in consciousness in my pursuit of the Creator. But I can certainly understand how a person who transacts with gods could think differently. So any being that transacts because it's not eternal, because there's a deficit of some kind. We have to transact down here. Have to eat, have to sleep, and in the modern world, we have to make money. So our existence is a series of transactions. The gods are also subject to transactions because they're not eternal beings. The only thing exempt from transactions are eternal beings and the eternal being itself, which is one thing. To pluralize it means it's just the aggregate of the souls operating as one collective being. So the principle of a transaction is give and take. The gods are transactional. Go back and read your mythology. They're completely transactional. They kill each other at times. So if they're transactional, what do they want from us? What do they want from the people that interact with them? What do they want from the Hindu adherents? What does Shiva want? What does Vishnu want? What does Zeus want? What does Odin want? Because they're transactional beings. Transaction is the basis of the market. The market is the space of transactions. I'll have one of those, please. How much is it? Okay. Here are your fiat notes. Thank you very much. Can you put that in a bag, please? It's a transaction. Marriage is a transaction. An endless series of transactions, actually. What do you need? What do you want? How do I make you happy? Here's what I need. Here's what I want. Here's how you make me happy. Now, I'm not saying that there isn't unconditional love in that. It develops over time. Absolutely, there's unconditional love. But it's transactional. Now, this is not to say that people who are in relationship with gods are not doing extraordinary things. They are. Absolutely, they are. There's absolutely nothing wrong with it. But ultimately, all forms of worship at the end of the incarnational cycle will go back to the Creator. And when you get to that point, you may not want to eat that much meat. I think that's about it for tonight. I promise I'm going to get on to blood pretty soon. I'm actually dreading going over this chapter, aggregating all the material, talking about it. You know, I'm kind of a happy-go-lucky guy most of the time. You'd never guess that if you read these books, but I am. Absolutely happy-go-lucky guy. I whistle up here when I walk. I don't sing to myself, but I do whistle. I hum. you know. So anyways, I hope you've enjoyed this podcast, and we'll see you again tomorrow.